Let me start with you, Donna. Like, how did you actually find out about your Nobel Prize? And then following that, how has it changed your life or how other people treat you?
Yes. Okay. So they do call you at 11 o'clock in the morning Swedish time. So it just depends on where you live. But on the East Coast time, that's 5 a.m. So it was shortly after 5 a.m. They did call George first because they didn't have my phone number. And so they called him and got my phone number. They hung up on me after they told me it was an important call from Sweden. They think I hung up on them, but that's not true. And so then after 15 minutes of waiting and wondering if it was real, I went down and found my computer, and there was an email saying, we can't call you, because I was holding onto the phone. Please call us. But I knew I was calling the Royal Swedish Academy then, so I just thought, okay, this is definitely, it was sort of this weird thing that I had to call them for them to say, I've won the Nobel Prize. And then they ask you to come on to a press conference by phone. It's at 12 noon their time, so 6 a.m. my time. And I was the only one of the three of us that actually joined. I didn't realize that I would be the only one of the three of us. And so it is quite startling. It is quite life-changing. And one of the things that's hard to deal with is that your colleagues do treat you differently. So in January of 2019, my department asked me to give a colloquium about what I had done to win this Nobel Prize, which I did. And it was standing room only. Now, we're lucky to get 20 people to our colloquium, and all of a sudden, it was a room that held 150, and it was standing room only. And I said to them all, I said, look, I could have given this talk any of the 20 years that I've been here, and I would have been lucky to get 20 of you, but because the Nobel Committee said I'm worthy of a Nobel Prize, now look at all of you, you know? And so people automatically treat you differently, and they automatically assume you're smarter than you are, and they automatically assume, I don't know. But it's also, I mean, it is life-changing in that I have had an audience with the Pope. And even my Jewish husband was quite excited to get to meet the Pope. And I've met rock stars. Brian May of Queen runs a conference or event. Some of the conference is more like an event that I've been to now a few times. I've gotten to meet Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. And he just really knows how to handle fans, because he was sitting behind me. We were both going to get the same award, prize, whatever. And there was 4 Nobel physics laureates, and I just sort of turned around because he was sitting by himself, and I said, how did you get stuck behind all the physicists? And he reaches forward, and he takes my hand, and he says, oh, I love physicists. Okay. So it's just this very different kind of life that you all of a sudden have because one group of people picked you out of a whole pile of people they could have picked.
So Kim, what's like special about being at a weapons lab? Or maybe you haven't, it's been so long since you've worked anywhere else,
Yeah.
but.
No, so Lawrence Livermore is one of the 17 Department of Energy national labs. We're a national security lab. I always call us a national security lab with a nuclear core, because our core responsibilities have to do with the nation's nuclear deterrent. But we're home to some of the most amazing science capabilities in the country that we use to do this work. So this year we cited the world's largest computer, El Capitan. So we're number 1. We debuted on the number 1 on the list. We also are home to the world's largest, most energetic laser. And we were very lucky to have support over many years, not just to build this facility, but to use it to do incredible research, studying some of the most extreme states of matter in the universe, conditions you find in the center of the giant planets or the center of the sun or exploding supernovae, and to do research on fusion. And so in 2022, our lab did a fusion experiment where we produced more fusion energy in the experiment than the laser energy required to drive it, which is the first time by any method, anywhere, anyone has ever achieved gain greater than 1 in a fusion experiment. So super exciting to be at a place. We have 9,000 employees, about half of them are technical people, and across many, many disciplines where you can bring together these big teams, scientists and engineers, to do science at a scale and a level of complexity that's just, in some cases, almost unimaginable. So it really is a wonderful place to be. The thing about being a national security lab is that our work supports many elements of the nation's security. We have our nuclear deterrence work, but also threat reduction, nuclear threat reduction. We do a lot of biosecurity work. We do a lot of work with international partners. And so for us, that mission, that sense of purpose, sense of national service is really important. So when I go to work every day, I may make contributions that are very small or sometimes bigger, but I know that every day I'm contributing to something that's more important than me, that's bigger, that's important to the whole of the country and to the world. And so the people who tend to come to our lab and stay really gravitate to that sense of mission and purpose and being part of a team that's trying to solve these really hard, challenging problems for the nation.
That's why I didn't stay. I'm not a team player.
Can you tell us about the institute that you're director of?
All right, so Texas Quantum Institute is a rather new institute, launched in April last year, funded internally for 5 years by College of Natural Science, Cockrell School of Engineering, Provost, President's Office. You know, of course, there are a lot of quantum research has been happening all over UT for many years, but we lack an umbrella organization that can be out-facing organization, you know, to collaborate with the industry, national lab, or policymakers. So that's why the institute is funded to sort of serve as a, you know, contact point to foster collaborations.
And how many people do you have, and what are the main thrusts?
So the idea is that the faculty join voluntarily. So I think there are probably around 30 faculty listed on the website. And the key area that we're trying to advocate for includes quantum algorithm. When you build a quantum computer, how do you run them effectively? And quantum material, and all materials are quantum, but you know, you're at the next level of controlling material, like I said, with atomic precision, and computing and predicting their properties. Computational science is a strength at UT Austin. We also have a huge supercomputer clusters. And then quantum metrology. The idea is to build new tools to see the invisible, things that you cannot observe right now. We want to observe them. And then system, you need to connect the individual devices together, make them work together, and do greater things. So these are the four thrusts that we're trying to advocate for.
I also wanted to ask you about the trust issue, even before I heard about this trust program. How are you seeing, and like what signs are you seeing that trust is low, and what are you hoping to do to increase it?
Certainly with COVID, and I've said this before, I think we lost a lot of trust because one of the things I hope to teach is the scientific process. We spend too much time in our science classes just talking about what science has already been learned, and science is about what we don't know. But we don't teach this, and we don't teach this to the public. And COVID was an experiment happening in front of their eyes. And for a scientist, we understand that we make a lot of mistakes. We don't have the answers. That's the point of doing the science. We try something, see if it works, it does or it doesn't. And so when we kept changing what we were supposed to do about COVID, wear a mask, not wear a mask, do this, do that, it was because from a science point of view, of course, we did the experiment, we found out something we have to change, we keep on going, we keep changing. But to the public who doesn't understand how science works, they went, these guys don't even know what they're doing. Why are we listening to these people? They don't know what they're doing. It's ridiculous that we're listening to them. I mean, and I think it's very sad that, you know, here in Texas, you got a measles outbreak, and because people are scared to take vaccines now. And why are they scared to take vaccines? Because people that had a TV platform, that were just famous for being an actor or a singer or something, could say it causes autism. And even though that's been debunked in the science community, we couldn't seem to get that out. And they would rather listen and take science advice now from somebody with no science training, and they start calling us the elite, which I just don't understand at all. And so we have to try to fight this. And so there's two of us. So I'm on the science side, but we have somebody in rhetoric, and her research is about how to get people to understand science from a communications point of view. And so we're going to try to work, but we also have psychologists as part of it to see, you know, we have to listen and we have to hear why it is they don't trust us. And one of the things, and it's come up in our conversations about fusion taking 20 years, at our first trust event, somebody from the public said, I'm one of the people that have lost trust because we started a new Institute of Quantum Computing 25 years ago, And when we started, we said, oh, we hope to have quantum computers in 20 years. Now, scientists will throw out the term 20 years because for us, it's like there's no real reason it can't happen, but we don't know when it will happen. So to a scientist, 20 years is like that horizon. But we have to be careful when we talk to the public, because this guy said, you told us there'd be quantum computers when you started this. It's been 20 years. We have no quantum computers, so why do we even trust you? Right? And so we do have to learn how to, and again, I think all overhype our stuff to try to get the research grants or to get the funding. We do have to learn as scientists how better to talk about what we do to the public so that they keep our trust. But we also have to listen to them as to why it is they've lost trust.
Do either of you want to comment on the trust issue?
Yeah, I'll just note, we were talking about fusion. So in the wake of our results and some other advances in the fusion community, a huge number of private companies have been founded who are intent on building fusion power plants, which would be great. This is really a wonderful energy source, very clean, large-scale baseload energy, could be deployed all over the world. It could change the world if we can do it. But there are real scientific challenges between where we are and the scientific work we've done to date and what you need to actually put electrons on the grid. And so for these companies, and there are a lot of them, there's like 45 companies, $9 billion in venture capital investment, their job is to generate enthusiasm. So there are companies promising fusion on the grid in 2 years. It seems implausible. I mean, based on what I know about the science and engineering of these systems, that's probably not going to happen. But with the right investments and the right focus, it could certainly happen against some time scale. So there's this balance between being optimistic and managing expectations. And I think to Donna's point, we don't always get that quite right. And we have to help the public see inside the process. It took us 60 years from the first proposal that we could use lasers to create these ignition conditions in the laboratory. Generations of scientists contributed little bits of knowledge, bigger lasers, better targets, more precision, better computing. All these things contributed until it finally came together in the end in the result. But we get too focused on the big splashy end game and don't help people really understand the toil, tears, many tears, and sweat that took to get there. And so it really does frustrate me that we've lost the idea of what expertise means. And it's not just science, it's many fields where people devote themselves to really becoming expert on important issues. And our world is built around the idea that these experts help make it better, right? They're not, we should respect that. You should respect the time and effort it takes to really learn something to a level where you can either teach others or use it to benefit the broader society. And we've lost the beat on that.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in a little bit too. I think COVID is the time that we're all super frustrated. We felt science played a major role to pull us out of that pandemic, yet in the process, we lost trust, public trust in science. I always think about a good friend, that decade-long friend. She was a very talented writer. She now lives in New York. So we have a lot of debate. She sent me this Wall Street Journal article during the pandemic and say, science is just a theory, because scientists don't know what's going on, right? Why are they telling us what to do? I don't know whether I should be embarrassed. During the pandemic, a lot of us stopped traveling. I went to school board meetings as a form of entertainment, In Texas, there were a lot of school board meeting, debate about math, about all sorts of things. So I went there regularly for about a year. And then, and also, I have neighbors who tells me that they don't trust the vaccine. It's not a real vaccine. I asked who they listen to. She would say Joe Rogan. By the way, for those of you who don't know Joe Rogan, he is a fantastic storyteller. If I have a chance to go on to his show, I would go. Right? Obviously, someone who knows how to communicate, we need to master that. Right? So I think it takes a lot of hard work. I think we should accept the reality we live in, that we don't have trust a lot of time from people around us in the public. How do we build that? Right? So it's a conversation we should have, and we need to make serious effort towards to gain that trust.
So having reached achieved some fusion. What are the plans and goals at your lab for the next few years?
Yes, so we have successfully exceeded that threshold another 5 times. Now this has been 2 years, so this is, again, still very difficult science. The level of precision and artistry that has to go into these experiments is still very high, so we're learning, still learning. We're on a path to do some upgrades to our facility that will increase the laser energy. So just to give you a sense of scale, so our laser facility is the size of 3 football fields in extent, and it's 10 stories tall at its tallest point. It has 192 individual laser beams in it. We focus all that laser energy, 2 million joules of laser energy, into a can that's about 1 centimeter long, little gold can, to make a very hot X-ray oven. So it's that concentration of power into a very small volume that allows this to work. So when it's operating at full power, the laser produces 500 times more power than the entire generating capacity of the US grid. So that's a sense of scale. We make this little X-ray oven. It heats up a little tiny capsule made out of diamond that's filled with deuterium and tritium, basically heavy isotopes of hydrogen. Blows the outside surface of that capsule off, which pushes the interior surface in to squeeze that hydrogen up. So conceptually simple process. Certainly there's a path to take that to much higher gains, much higher yields, and build a fusion energy system around it. But, again, very hard to get that right. The way we squeeze that capsule up, it's like if you took a basketball and squeezed it down to the size of a pea, and it has to be perfectly round at the end of your squeezing it down. So still very hard. So we have started a number of initiatives to work with these private fusion companies and with academic partners and others to start to tackle the science and engineering challenges between a lab-based physics demonstration that fusion energy is plausible to what it will take to actually build a fusion energy system. So we're doing a lot of work to build partnerships in that space, to do laser technology development, target fabrication development, advance our modeling and simulation capabilities, and really help this industry move forward smartly. So that's a big part of what we're doing in that space. We also use this laser to do a lot of other things. We do a lot of studies of, sort of fundamental properties of matter, and we use it to support our national security programs. So the laser was built as part of the nation's stockpile stewardship program, which was the effort to allow us to sustain our nuclear weapons without doing any more underground nuclear testing. So in some sense, that laser, the capabilities we have there, is a big part of how the US has contributed to global stability and non-proliferation goals around the world. So we use that facility to understand these very extreme conditions that you can't really generate in any other way. So I'm hopeful that this will be able to do this investment and increase the capabilities of the facility. I'm very hopeful that if we get the right kind of public-private partnership built, that we'll be able to really accelerate progress toward fusion energy. And this is a very important pipeline facility for us. The science is incredibly exciting. The facility is really unique. So it's a way for people to come to our lab and really get engaged in the kind of work that we do.
There's supposed to be 2 mics that I don't see them from here, but probably because of the light. Yeah. So if people have questions, you can come to the mics and please.
Hi. Does it work? Okay. Thank you so much for this panel. It's really inspiring. My name is Sophia. I'm from Princeton Plasma Physics Lab. I work in inertial fusion energy, so I'm a big fan of you ladies here. I'm just wondering about your leadership styles. You're all renowned leaders in the field and in very male-dominated field. And as me as an early career scientist, I experience sometimes a lot of pressure and issues. So I'm wondering if you can share some key values for you which help you to develop your leadership and which helps you to effectively lead successful teams.
Each of you.
You're the big leader.
Oh, I'm the big leader.
You're
So
the big
one of the first lessons I actually learned from Donna, who I met when I was a graduate student. And she told me to stop apologizing all the time. Like, don't act like you're sorry to be here. you're smart, you belong here, do your work, and do your best, which was a very important lesson. I think there are several important things to being a leader. I think being authentic is really important. I think being willing to learn from others. My team is amazing. If you surround yourself with people who are smarter and better than you in many dimensions, it's very easy to look like a great leader. I think being willing to say, I don't know, or I don't understand, and ask for help is really important. The fake it till you make it isn't exactly a great strategy in all circumstances. And you have to be willing to own up to it when you screw up. Because if you're leading a team or you're leading an organization, you have to make decisions, and they won't always be right. And you have to be willing to go back and say, I didn't get it right this time, let's try again, let's do something different. Or you have an interaction that turns out, unfortunately, you have to be able to say, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant, can we please try this again? So just, a lot of being a good leader is communicating with people and caring about people and being very excited about what you do. So, my job is to be an enthusiastic champion for the important work that we do and to help people get the right environment, the right resources, the right colleagues to ensure that they can do that work. So being curious, being excited, and being prepared to say, I don't know.
So as a physicist who has also worked in industry and cross-functional teams, one of the things that I look back and note with some cringeworthiness is that we as physicists tend to use a lot of jargon. And the literature can be very impenetrable for someone who isn't already versed in all the jargon. Concepts are hard enough as it is, and to wrap it around with a foreign language to try and get somebody to understand. So bringing this back to the trust part of the conversation, are we overusing jargon, and is that a major or a minor barrier to having trust with the public?
Okay, I'm going to ask this. I think when we speak to the public, of course, we should never use jargon. And I think that we always, I would love all universities to really have some department that finds the people in each of the departments who are naturally good speakers. Not everybody is a good speaker, and it doesn't matter what field you're in. But I think that we have to get out and give talks. So when you talk about astro, for whatever reason, people just think they look up at the stars and they're fascinated by them and they're willing to go and hear, but astro isn't any easier to understand than any other area of science, but they capture the attention. So I can tell now, because my daughter just graduated with her PhD in astro, and halfway through hers, she already had to give a public talk. It is part of the astro thing. Now, also, NASA gives them beautiful pictures, and it gives them the talking points to go with these beautiful pictures. And I think the other areas of physics needs these organizations, and some of the big science institutes maybe could be filling that role that NASA fills for the astro community. I'm going to push back a little bit about this. We physicists get this bad rap that we're so hard to understand. And now I go to a lot of these things where the Nobel laureates across the scientists are speaking. And I'm left going, really? Was I really supposed to see why that big molecule was so much better of a catalyst than this great big molecule? Because it wasn't obvious to me, and I don't quite know why you think that's so obvious, but anything I say in physics is like, well, that's physics, and so we can't understand it. And I find the same in biology, that they just talk about their, and they all have names with everything, and you're going, I have no idea what the heck you're talking about. So it doesn't matter. I don't think physics is any worse than any other area of science. Every area, economics, it doesn't matter what it is, we all speak our jargon. And we also long since forget how far back it was when we learned that jargon, because we all go to our conferences in our own fields. And so this is why, so when I won the Nobel Prize, I knew I had to give a public talk. And so I told the president of the university, this is what I wanted help with. And I got a team of 3 from the communications. And not only that, the slides were made off-site so that they, I could have my dancing photons. And nobody knew how to make my dancing photons, so we hired someone. But it was also trying to get them to make the slides for me that made me realize I wasn't explaining it right, because they were non-scientists and they weren't making the slides the way I tried to explain them. And so it was quite a process to come up with the public talk. This is also why it's the only talk I give over and over and over again, because it was a tremendous amount of work, and you just don't have that much time to come up with many of these talks. But I started to think that the university really should invest more, and that every department needs one person who can go out and speak, at least one, about something that anybody from any field should be able to follow what you said, and the communications team is there to say, yeah, you got it right. I'm not in science, and I understood you.
Who do you think will win the Nobel Prize in Physics in the near future, and who would you like to win?
I don't know that I can really predict. I find it very hard. Back to AI, I got asked at the time, what did I think about that? I refused to answer the media that question. Because obviously there's so many things that could win, and it's somewhat just a crapshoot. This is why I don't actually like prizes, because although the good side of it is that it does highlight to the public what science does, and the bad side is for every one of us that wins, there's so many other really talented scientists who are just as smart and have worked just as hard, and they're not going to get the recognition, even though, as I said, my laser work couldn't have happened without a whole lot of people bringing in all the parts. So I can't tell you. I wouldn't have thought AI was going to win, but there it was. But it can be anything.
I have a highly scientific theory. So as a graduate student, Todd and I worked in a lab with 2 women who went on to win the Nobel Prize in Physics. So Donna and Elaine Li, who won for attosecond pulses. Coincidence? I think not.
So it's working with talented grad students. That's what it is.
Yes,
Okay.
so I'm not going to win a Nobel Prize, but if you want to win one, you should work near me.
Well, if there's no more questions, I want to thank all of you for coming, and all of you, of course, and I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation. I certainly did.